Why aren't my books selling on Amazon? Hey, what's going on? My name's Steve, and I've been selling books on Amazon for over 7 years now. I've been reselling in total on eBay and other platforms for 9 years. I actually taught my mom how to retire selling books. And one of the most common questions we get about folks who are selling books or maybe just starting your book business is, how long does it take for a book to sell? Or I sent in a bunch of books and my stuff isn't selling. So in this video, I'm gonna be sharing the top 5 things or factors you have to keep in mind when it comes to how long it's gonna take for a book to sell and how long you can expect a book to sell or sit in your inventory until it flips and makes you a profit. So with that being said, if you're excited about this video, show some love, drop a comment, subscribe, and let's get right into the content. All right, guys, so when it comes to selling books on Amazon, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of new sellers make is they don't have the correct equipment, supplies, or software. And one piece of software that I would highly recommend is getting the scanning application ScoutIQ. Now, I'm gonna put an extended trial down below if you wanna try it out. And the reason why you're gonna wanna have ScoutIQ is because it gives you a metric called eScore. Now, the Amazon Seller app, which is free, which allows you to scan books as well, doesn't have this metric. And what the eScore essentially is telling you when you scan a book, I'll put an example on the screen, it'll give you a number. It'll give you a number from 0 to 151 plus. Now, 0 means that book has had 0 recorded sales over the last 6 months. Now, an eScore of 80 would mean that that book has had a sale at least once a day for 80 days over the last 6-month period. So this is so important because when you're analyzing a book and you're trying to figure out how long is it gonna take to sell, what's the sales history of this particular book, it's great to be able to have that metric. And later on in this video, I'm gonna be talking more about the Amazon Seller app, but the Amazon Seller app only gives you rank. And I'm gonna talk about that in one moment. But rank doesn't give you all the information. So by having ScoutIQ, when you're looking at a book, you're analyzing a book, and you're trying to figure out how long is this gonna take to sell? When can I expect this thing to really be purchased? The sales history will tell you and give you the most evidence about what's most likely to happen in the future. So get yourself ScoutIQ and make sure you're looking at the eScore. And if you don't have ScoutIQ, you can also download a Google Chrome extension, which is called Keepa, which will essentially give you the same information, but kind of like in a messy graph. I'll put a picture of a Keepa chart, and you pretty much just have to watch all the drops, kind of like a stock market chart, to see how many times that has sold. But again, the eScore will pull that data and tell you directly how many days it's had at least one sale over the last 6 months. Number 2, the second factor you wanna keep in mind when you're trying to figure out how long is it gonna take for a book to sell, or maybe your books aren't selling, is you wanna take a look at the sales rank. Now, think about the sales rank as a snapshot in time of how that book is selling right now. You can have a book that's ranked 20,000 and you might be thinking, oh man, this thing's selling all the time, 5, 6, 7 times a day. But if that book stops selling over the next couple days, the next couple weeks, the next couple months, it's gonna continue to rise in sales rank, which indicates a slower sales velocity until it could ultimately reach the millions of rank, right? When you find a book that's a 2 million rank versus a book that's a 50,000 rank, it's most likely that the 50,000 rank is selling more, but it doesn't tell the complete story, because a book could be ranked 2 million and have a couple sales within a few days and be down to 20,000. A book that's 20,000 may have been a 2 million ranked book, but again, it had those sales and it's down there, but maybe in a couple days or in a couple weeks, it could be up to 500,000 or 1 million. So rank only gives you a snapshot in time of how that book or that product in general is doing, whereas the eScore will give you a bigger picture of the long-term history of that book, how well it's done, which is a great indicator for how it'll do in the future. But also, I didn't mention it in the previous point, sometimes your books might not be selling because again, the eScore is so low, maybe a 3 or a 4, which means that book's only had 3 or 4 sales in the last 6 months, and depending on other factors, which I'm gonna talk about, that could be the reason why it's not selling, or that could be the reason why it might take 6 to 12 months for that to sell. The third thing to keep in mind when you're trying to figure out how long it should take for a book to sell, or why isn't my inventory or my book selling, is competition. Competition's gonna play a big role in how quickly things sell, because the more sellers there are, the more likely that there's gonna be changes in the price. So if you're not consistently repricing your items and you're not the lowest price, or you don't have an advantage with your condition, or maybe you have amazing feedback and someone doesn't, you're not going to get that sale. Also, do you get the buy box or do you not get the buy box? So when you're on Amazon and you're shopping, you ever hit the button that says buy it now? What that essentially is doing is going to the buy box, and whoever's in that buy box is getting the sale. There could be 10 people selling a book, and that's gonna typically rotate amongst the sellers who get the buy box. So buy box is very important. If you're priced competitively, if you're an FBA seller, if you have really good feedback, you have a better chance of getting that buy box. You know, the rules are always changing, so feel free to drop some comments down below for all the buy box experts out there. But keep in mind competition, because especially if you don't have a repricer, and you're not pricing all the time, you're not gonna get that sale, because on Amazon, it's really driven amongst who gets the buy box and who's the lowest price. You know, on eBay, there's multiple pictures that you can put. You're able to put different descriptions and SEO, and you're able to optimize in a whole, you know, variety of ways. Whereas Amazon, everybody's piggybacking under a single listing. So you want to make sure that you kind of keep an eye on how many competitors there are. And there's a couple other factors I'm going to mention as I move into this fourth point, which is, are you an FBA seller or a merchant seller? I think that it's very important that you sell your books as an FBA seller, which is fulfillment by Amazon. And essentially how FBA works is you take all your inventory, you put it in a box, you label it, and you ship it to the Amazon warehouses. And the reason this is important, and this is why I typically make more money and I sell my items faster and spend less time, is because when your items are at the FBA warehouse, people are purchasing via the Prime program, which means they're able to get their inventory in 1 to 2 days. It's hassle-free returns, and they really think they're buying from Amazon, and they are buying from Amazon, but we, the third-party sellers, are actually the supplier to Amazon, and then Amazon just handling the fulfillment section. So the reason this is important is if you're a merchant seller and you're fulfilling everything you know, fulfilled by merchant, FBM, versus FBA, which is fulfilled by Amazon, typically you're going to sell items slower. You're not going to be able to get as much of a bump in your price versus FBA, and you're going to have to spend the time to fulfill all your orders, pick them, pack them, deal with customer service, whereas with Amazon FBA, we don't have to do any of that. So this is important when you're trying to figure out how long is it gonna take to sell, why aren't my items selling, because people are much more inclined, customers are much more motivated to purchase from an FBA seller to get that Prime shipping, that free 2-day shipping, hassle-free returns, great customer service through Amazon, and they don't necessarily wanna deal with merchants. Now, I have friends of mine who crush it as a merchant seller. I'm not an expert when it comes to merchant selling, so I'm gonna have to interview some more people on my channel. But for me personally, just based on my experience, I find that FBA is a much better way to go, and you could sell your items quicker, you could save time, and I just feel like you'll make more profit. And last but not least, number 5, when you're trying to consider why aren't my items selling, how long is it gonna take to sell, you've already gone through the e-score. Hopefully you downloaded ScoutIQ. I'll put a link below, or you're using the Amazon seller app and you've looked at the rank. Maybe you've used the Keep a chart to kind of get some history. If you don't have ScoutIQ, you're an FBA seller, or you're at least making sure that you're competing against FBA versus merchant fulfilled. If you're a merchant fulfilled, you don't want to compete with FBA prices. And that goes into the 5th thing, is your pricing model. If you're pricing the lowest price and you have good feedback and you're pricing against FBA sellers, if you're an FBA seller, you're going to get that sale as long as there's a market for that item. Again, that's why it's so important to look at the e-score and look at the sales rank. But if you're the lowest price, you're typically going to get that sale as long as you get the buy box. So you've got to be careful. If you're pricing 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th in line and the book's ranked 2 million and it's got a 5 e-score and that book's really not selling very often, those books aren't going to sell. So you've got to price competitively. You gotta make sure that you focus on receiving really good feedback, creating good experience. Make sure that you create good descriptions when you're selling used items so people know. An example is a library book. If it's an X library, you gotta put that in a description, list it as good, let people know, under promise and over deliver. But these are, different things and factors to keep in mind. But price is very important. Repricing is very important. And making sure that you're pricing against, if you're a merchant, don't price against FBA seller pricing, because they're gonna beat you almost every single time, unless it's just, a fluke and it's a really fast seller. So these are the things that I keep in mind when I'm selling books. Hopefully this was able to help you. I'm telling you right now, I love selling books, and I always recommend it to new sellers, because with books, there's not a lot of restrictions. They're easy to find. You get them at thrift stores very inexpensively. You can put out ads on Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace. You can do free book pickups. There's libraries, there's auctions, there's flea markets, there's garage sales. The list goes on and on. So hopefully this was able to add value to you. If it did, then be sure to smash that like button. If you have any questions, drop a comment down below. Again, all the things that I referenced in this video, I'll drop a link to my tools, supplies, and softwares to be able to help you get started. And I just want to thank you for watching. Thanks so much, and talk to you soon. Bye.